and welcome to my hometown in Steele, Kidder County. We are coming to you from the Cobblestone Country Suites. And my first guest is Paul Erdelt. He is the editor and owner of the Ozone Steele Kidder County Press. And welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for being such a big part of this program. Whenever I do a My Hometown segment, the first thing I do is I call the editor of the local paper, and Paul did not disappoint me. He was a walking encyclopedia, and what really was surprising is he mentioned that the small town newspapers are doing extremely well.
Yeah. Well, we are. Small towns are obviously big on community, and that is where the community gets their local news. And the stories are about their friends, their family, their neighbors. They get to see their kids in the sports with the pictures, and we have online versions just like the big papers do, but around here we all want that paper in the morning with our cup of coffee.
So in big cities where they're losing subscribership and they're folding, you're doing better than ever, right?
We're growing, correct.
Wow. Do you have people from outside the area?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. And the Postal Service isn't always as dependable as it needs to be for the snowbirds. So probably half of my snowbirds get their paper online, and then when it comes 7 days later in the mail, they read it again.
It really is a way to stay connected to your community and your friends and what's going on. Speaking of what's going on, you had told me about the Tuttle Innovation Center, which is unique. Explain what that's about.
Yes. A team of people got together and got some grants and actually took over the Tuttle School when it closed, and they formed the Tuttle Rural Innovation Center. So a school, obviously a large facility, they now have office space, they've got maker space for crafts, arts, they've done concerts in there, they've got a commercial kitchen. They have it all remodeled, and they've just done amazing things in there, from vendor shows, like I mentioned, to concerts. Right now, they've got a pasta maker, a commercial pasta maker, and they've got some people probably going to rent that and make homemade pasta out of the commercial kitchen.
Wow, that is so cool. You know, with schools consolidating, and I know that's hard, right? Because you're so connected to your community school. But what a beautiful way to use that facility to also continue to bring the community together.
It is, and with the internet, we're able to work remotely. And like I said, they've got office space in there for rent. They've got a few renters in there now, and it keeps the main street in Tuttle bustling also with all the activities they have.
Right. Instead of an empty building, you've got just a real active community and a meeting place, and doing things that big cities don't even think of doing sometimes. You know, a pasta maker? That is so cool. We'll be back and do that story later.
Okay.
I want to talk about Beck, too, because you're the one that brought up Beck, and it's like, oh, yeah, Beck. We definitely have to sing the praises of Beck.
Well, but we do. With the fiber to the home project that they've been working on for probably, 10 years. They did it around here. They got done. They did it in Emmons County as well, and Burley, rural Burley. And now they're all over Bismarck, and then also out by Valley City, taking fiber to the home. And again, with everybody working from home, how great is that? Their service is extremely reliable. Their customer service is outstanding. And if they can't fix it, or if they don't, if they're unsure how to get it done, they call you right back and have answers for you. So no, it's huge having a co-op like that in our community. Obviously, probably one of the largest employers, but of the county. But just what a great part of the community. Anything that happens, they're sponsoring or helping staff, and it's great to have Beck in our community.
And I can't argue with you there. When we were talking that first phone call, you created a plan in my life where I'm going to go to all these restaurants. They do entire TV shows of good eating, fine dining, And you told me some amazing places to eat in the area.
Well, we really are fortunate. You know, Kidder County is known for its hunting and fishing, listed as in the top 10 for birding places in the world. It's just fun to take a drive and see 10 different kinds of duck or just all the wildlife that you can see. And in doing that, we've got the little town cafes, but the little town cafes have not only some pretty good prices, but just excellent, excellent food. Leaving Steele and going north, you go to Tuttle, we have Bella's in the old Tuttle Cafe building now, and Bella's is Italian, but everything. And he's got steaks, and he does breakfast, lunch, and suppers, and most of these places do a special on a Friday night or a Saturday night. So you've got that just 30 minutes away. You then head on the highway over to Robinson. You've got Carol's Kitchen. You keep down the highway, you've got Pettibone, you've got the Harvester Cafe. Then you come right off interstate over in Tappan, you have Tappan Roadhouse. In Dawson, you've got Wolf's. And then out at Lake Isabel, right south of Dawson, you've got Lakeside. And then coming back to Steele, you've got the AmVets. So every place has its special. Every place has its what it's famous for. And great service and, yeah, really good food when you're out hunting or fishing or birding or you just want to drive.
That's what I'm thinking, because sometimes you just want to go for a drive and go to a good restaurant, something different. And my impression is that you have eaten at all these places.
Very many times, yes.
I could tell because you were talking to me about the menu and you knew the background of some of the owners. Because one of those restaurants was at the Harvester. They came from
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They came out as kids and hunted and decided they wanted to retire here. And it's a couple, and she's the cook, and he built her the restaurant.
Wow.
And fantastic food.
That says a lot about a community when you come back. And as a matter of fact, I've heard that there are people coming to Steele from other states. So
oh, yes.
It's somebody I just talked to, the owner of the Coffee Cup, who said, I have 2 interviews this week. One was from Phoenix and one was from Kentucky, who want to move to Steele. So that says a lot about the community.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, with a minute to go, you talked about the pool. You have a community pool here.
Yes.
And they want to build a new one. And what I love is how community-minded everybody is. Even if their kids are grown and maybe not going to use it, they still want there to be a pool for the community.
Absolutely. The old pool is almost 50 years old, and I don't know how long that lasts, but they've decided to move to the Four Seasons Park and make it happen. And as all the small towns know, it's a lot of fundraising, a lot of work. The board is fantastic, and they've been out and in the community, you know, and it's just great that they're going to make it happen.
Right. It's like whatever it takes, it's going to happen. And I know I'm going to talk about it on air in December, but there's going to be a Winterfest as a fundraiser, and we're always looking for things to do in December, so it's going to be a good reason to come out to Steele.
Absolutely.
And go to the Winterfest. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today, and we'll be right back with after these messages with Ladies of Another View, My Hometown.
My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: Coffee Cup Travel Plaza, Cobblestone Inn and Suites, Choice Bank. My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: Steele Vets Club, Kidder County Transit, Dakota Custom Services.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View. I'm back, and we are coming to you from the Cobblestone Inn and Suites for the My Hometown Steele Kidder County segment. And I am joined right now with Jared Newton. He is the manager of the Long Lake National Wildlife refuge complex. Did I
Yep.
get it all in correctly?
You got it.
And as well as the Slade Refuge too, which is kind of a little satellite refuge.
Correct.
Why don't we start by talking about what are those refuges?
Yeah, so the refuges are federal lands. They were usually established through an executive order, like Long Lake was established in 1932 through executive order by President Hoover. And the purpose of the refuge is to provide migratory bird habitat in the Central Flyway. And that's what we do. It's a little over 22,000 acres. And we manage our lands and the wetlands out there to provide the optimal habitat for migratory birds, whether it's waterfowl or sparrows or any type of bird that are migrating through. And then also it provides habitat for our species that stick around year-round as well.
It's a nice idea. We love to preserve wildlife, but there's a reason why they wanted to do that here, right, in Kidder County.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, must be a mistake, but you confirmed it. This area is one of the top 10 bird watching areas in the world, not in the state or the country, but in the world.
Yeah. So, I don't know who exactly came up with that, but I mean, it makes sense because Kidder County has a lot of habitat, intact wetlands, intact native prairie grasslands that are still within the landscape, and you don't see that in a lot of other states, and even parts of North Dakota don't have that. So this area, just because of the topography, the way it was formed through glaciation events, it creates some really good habitat, and it's part of the prairie pothole region, which is known worldwide for being a great place for birds and other wildlife.
The prairie pothole region?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a new term for me, but I enjoy birds. I love wildlife. And you mentioned that it's on the migratory path of a lot of the birds, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me about some of those.
So the Central Flyway, the United States is divided up into a few different flyways where birds concentrate through their migratory routes throughout the year. They migrate. For our area, they come from down south. They migrate through the Central Flyway, through the central part of the states, and they do their nesting in the northern parts of the states where there's good habitat, good food sources, all those types of things, whether it's South Dakota, North Dakota, all the way up into Canada. And they settle. That prairie pothole region is that large in that area, and it's just a great spot that has all the things that they need to produce young, which is what they want to do.
So there's a Central Flyway.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the highway system.
Yeah, it kind of is
the
for birds.
birds have established.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that came about in nature?
There's different ideas on that, but I think it just became a need to spread out and not just be in one particular area. When they come up here to these areas that have not had anything in them through the winter time, and you get these big hatches of insects and larvae and all these resources for them, all the grass greens up, it's just an opportune spot for them to go and spread out and produce the young.
There's also information at your places on prairie grasses and wetlands, because that's got a lot of information is unique in this area too, right?
Yeah, so I mean we're part of the prairie, and the prairie is made up of different grasses and forbs, and of course all the wildlife, the soils, all these things work together to make the prairie. You have woodlands over to the east and far away on the west, but the central part of the United States, and in particular this part of North Dakota, with its intact native prairie, still gives you a great opportunity to go out and see all these different species of grasses that you can't see everywhere.
So as well as bird watching, you can kind of
so that goes hand in hand. When you have the habitat, you can do all those things, and the bird watching is very popular in this area. We get people that come from all over the country. We always have folks call up the refuge office and ask for tips where they can go to see these specific species that are they're specific to the prairie, and some of them to right around the North Dakota area, and we have a lot of them in Kidder County.
I know that groups come in busloads sometimes from across the country, and they'll stay at the Cobblestone. So I thought, and this is news to me, because I've gone to some of these places and I enjoy looking at birds, but I didn't know this is on the map of a lot of bird watchers across the country. And some of the more interesting birds that I think you can tell me, you know, if there's others that I don't mention, but like the piping plover.
Yep.
And the sandhill and whooping crane, and the whooping crane is endangered, right?
Yes, the whooping crane is an endangered species. There's a couple of different groups of them within the United States, but the Central Flyway has the largest group, and I think the total population is right around 800 birds total. That's it. So these are extremely endangered birds, and they winter down south in Texas, and they fly up to Wood Buffalo Park in Canada. That's where they nest, but they migrate through this area, and we see them on the refuge typically every year. I haven't seen any yet, but they tend to migrate at the same time as the sandhill cranes, and right now we have a few thousand sandhill cranes on the refuge roosting.
What time of the year then do you see them coming through here?
In the springtime, you know, as soon as there gets to be some wetland habitat that's thawed out, the ice is gone, where they can sit and roost at night. And then right now is a great time to get out and try to find them.
When would you see the piping plover?
They come a little bit later on in the spring. They follow a typical shorebird migration, but they'll come up in anywhere from the end of April to the beginning of May, and then they nest on Long Lake Refuge. And then they will raise their young there, and typically sometime in August is when they'll start their migration south.
Well, it's nice they stick around.
Yeah.
What about the snowy owl? Do they stay, or they, you know,
So
move on?
there, yeah, you know, a lot of birds leave the area in the wintertime, but the snowy owl actually nests up in the Arctic Circle, and once they're done with that, they tend to come down to the northern United States to find a little bit better weather, a little bit better hunting opportunities, and we see them every year at Long Lake Refuge.
Well, I love it that they think North Dakota has better weather than the Arctic Circle. It does, for sure. We only have about a minute left, but can you tell me about the guided tours? Somebody who says, hey, I want to check this out. There's 3 self-guided tours, right?
Yeah, so if you go to the City of Steele's website, you can look up these guided tours, and they have maps that show you different routes that you can take. You can go up north of town, you can go down south around the refuge, and they give you mile by mile your turns on, and they take you by some really nice places that you can go to see a variety of different birds. So they're a great option for people that don't know where to go.
And you get information on that too, right? As you go along, it's kind of a guided tour.
Yep.
And the only equipment you need is what? A pair of binoculars maybe would be nice?
A pair of binoculars, and if you have a birding book, or there's lots of birding apps now that you can load onto your phone, and they can help you identify species as well.
Well, thank you so much, Jared, for joining us. I appreciate it. And we'll be right back with Ladies of Another View, coming to you from Steele, Kidder County, right after this.
My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: Beck Communications, Arena Welding and Manufacturing LLC, Shields. My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: Steele Ozone, H&R Block, Pfeiffer's Auction and Realty.
Welcome back to My Hometown, coming to you from Steele, Kidder County at the Country Suites Inn. And I'm joined now with Chris Bruner, who is the coach of the trap shooting high school team, and also Kaylin Mock, who is a regional champion. And we're going to learn a little bit about trap shooting here. And you're going to tell us about it, Chris.
Well, trap is you're shooting clays, but you have 5 stands. There's 5 shooters at one time, and you have you shoot 5 shots per stand. After you shoot your 25, that's your round.
Okay. And then how do you compete then? I guess who's got the best shots?
For every time you hit a clay, it's called a hit. So we count up the amount of clays you hit, and then that'll be your score. And then for our league, it's 2 rounds. So it's 2 rounds of 25, 50 in total. And then whatever you get, let's say you got 45 of 50, that's the score I will enter into the electronic system.
What surprised me is this is the fastest growing sport in the country. Where did that come from?
In this last 2 years, there's been an extra 10 million shooters nationwide. So I mean, it just adds to the fact that those people are going to want to shoot trap, and it is a testament to the coaches around the country that are recruiting kids to come and learn our sport.
Well, now's a good time for me to talk to Caitlin because you are a regional champ.
Yep.
Which is impressive. And what grade are you in?
I'm a senior in high school.
Senior in high school. When did you start trap shooting?
I believe I started my freshman year when they began the trap league at our school. And my dad was the one who kind of pushed me into it, and I've really grown to love the sport.
And he pushed you into it. Did you like shooting? Was this your first experience doing it?
I've shot my whole life, but I've never really shot on a league before, but I've gone hunting and stuff on the farm.
Well, this goes to show you should listen to your dad because he knows best, right?
Yeah.
How is it that you became a champion? Do you practice really hard or are you just naturally good at it?
It's just like every other sport. You have to put the time in outside of practice. You have to put the time in and the work, and without that, you won't get anywhere.
I'm guessing it's fun.
It is very fun.
So it's not like hard work for you to practice.
No.
And how many hours a week would you say you practice?
Well, probably not as much as most sports, but I probably shoot maybe 200 rounds a week.
And there's 2 girls on the team.
Yep.
And 10 boys. And do they compete together? Like you don't have the girls' league and the boys' league?
We do have the girls.
Okay.
We compete as a team, so we have a total team score, but they also break it down into boys here and girls here. So we are competing as a team and girls and boys at the same time.
Now, I know some sports, obviously men have an advantage because they're
Right.
stronger and, bigger and faster. But what about trap shooting?
We've actually found nationwide, girls are better shooters than boys.
Wow. What do you think that's attributed to?
I think it's more focus. Most boys, especially around this area where we hunt. So, I mean, it's a lot of just pull up and shoot, and just because we can. Where the girls really want to succeed.
Would you say that's your secret? Like when you're practicing, what are you thinking? Like, oh, this is fun, but where's your focus? How did you get good at it?
When I'm shooting, my mind is basically on hitting the target or seeing the target. It's a mental game almost. So,
Did your dad help you with shooting originally?
Yes,
And do you like to hunt?
I do. Yep.
All right. What kind of hunting do you like to do?
I shoot geese, ducks, anything, pheasants. I go deer hunting. I basically anything anyone will take me out to shoot.
Okay, anything that moves and
Yeah.
you're ready to go there. Well, Chris, you're also the president of the Kidder County Sportsman Association.
Yes.
So obviously you hunt.
Right.
What kind of hunting is there in Kidder County here?
Waterfowl, pheasants, deer, grouse. There's a lot of variety here, especially since we're right on the edge of like the pothole region. So I mean, there's a lot of waterfowl comes through here, and I would say that's probably the biggest draw around here.
As being president of a sportsman association, what's the advantage of belonging to a group like that?
For us, our motto is preserving the wildlife and the outdoors for the next generation, and I think that most of our funding, all of our fundraising is for the high school trap team, and teaching the next generation how to shoot and having the values that most hunters have is, I think, the biggest part of what we do.
Tell me about some of those values, because not everybody hunts, and it's in recent decades it's become more controversial. So I'd like to hear about the values.
The biggest thing is you are taking a life. So if you're going to take that life, you need to have some kind of respect for that. I mean, you have to use what you take. I mean, if you're going to take that animal, you eat it. And if you're some people do mounts, but I mean, you have to use what you take.
And I suppose you are compassionate in the process, right? Like
You're taking a life. You have to feel something for that.
All right. And why would you advocate for hunting? What are some of the advantages to an area to have hunters?
Well, there's the obvious economic value for the area. You're bringing in money, but teaching kids responsibility, the next generation of taking care of what we have, and being able to pass that on to the next generation.
Is there also an element about overpopulation? Because I know that there's been, in some areas in the country, there's been overpopulation of deer or
There's certain parts of the country where they don't allow hunting, and you do have overpopulation. And like a lot of cities, like even Fargo, they do I don't know if they still do, but they used to allow bow hunting in the city limits just to get rid of some of the population. And that's I know a lot of bigger cities have bow hunting regulations. You can bow hunt in town in certain areas.
All right, yeah. So do they have bow hunting here?
Yes, I don't think they do in town, but yes, bow hunting is a growing sport as well.
Right. I want to get back to Kaylin. I'm wondering, what are you planning on doing since you're a senior? Do you have goals for next year?
Well, I'm hoping to make it to nationals again this summer, but this year I switched to left-handed shooting, so it's been a struggle. Yep.
Now, why did you do that?
I'm left-eye dominant, so I
You think you'll do better overall,
better left-hand,
but you have to adjust.
Yes.
And when is the season?
Right now,
we're in season.
We're on week 4 of our season, and then we will in the spring. We'll start a whole new year. It's usually in March we start.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a fun sport. I missed it, but glad that it's such a fast-growing sport to enjoy. Thank you both, Chris and Kaylin, for joining us. And we'll be right back after these messages with My Hometown from Steele, Kidder County.
My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: First Community Credit Union of Steele, Cobblestone Inn and Suites, Beck Communications. My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: Coffee Cup Travel Plaza, Cobblestone Inn and Suites, Choice Bank.
Welcome back to My Hometown. I'm back. We are once again joining you from the Cobblestone Inn and Suites in Steele and Kidder County. And I have with me Betty Smogoff, who is by default the Kidder County Museum curator. You're so good at it, and you know the history, and you took me around the museum. And I just love stepping back in time. And were you born in the area?
I was born in Tuttle, north of Steele, 22 miles.
And we should probably mention that Kidder County includes Steele, Tappan, Tuttle, Pettibone, Dawson, and Robinson.
Right.
All those counties. And they became incorporated together, and Steele became the county seat. Do you know what year that would have been?
1883.
1883. Okay. And what do you know about the history?
Well, Mr. Tuttle was originated in Tuttle, but Mr. Steele wanted to have the capital here. And so he built the building, which is now our courthouse, which is on the National Register. And he figured that by having Steele as the capital, it would be in the center of the county. Well, Bismarck won out. But we did get the county seat here. And the building was built in 1882 or 83.
The courthouse, right?
The courthouse,
right.
Yeah. And that was built with brick that he made in his own factory here in town. And the original building was 3 stories high. But when the deal for the capital fell through, then he sold it to the county for the county seat, and they lowered it to a 2-story building. They reversed the stairway because it was originally on the north side, so when the passenger train would come in, they could go right into the hotel. But
one really cool part about the Kidder County Courthouse is it is the oldest operational county courthouse in the state, So it's still working. You can come by and see it, and it's
We've
really a
got the
big
old-
piece of our history.
We've got the old original jail down the basement, but we don't use it. Nobody wants to stay there.
No, I can see why. Yeah, so let's talk about the Kidder County Museum. You have to make arrangements. It's not just open,
Right.
but you gave me a tour. We walked around, and there are some very interesting pieces there. I want to talk about my favorite one, so I don't forget.
Okay.
There is an old switchboard. Years ago, people didn't just pick up the phone and call. You had to go through a switchboard operator, and you were once a switchboard operator.
My mother was she was, and I grew up into it, yes.
So how did phone calls get connected? What did you have to
Well,
do?
If you had a phone, you turned the crank, which it was generated power using a battery, and that signaled into the switchboard, and then you'd plug into the switchboard. There's pictures down there, and you could talk to whoever was calling. They would tell you who they wanted to talk to, then you'd plug into that line and crank them up.
And back then you had party lines and right. So
Oh,
like
yes.
you would talk to the person, I want to talk to this person, you would plug them in. And there's a picture of you down there as a high school student working as a
15.
switchboard operator. That is so cool.
Mm.
What are some of the other things in the museum that are of
Well,
interest?
The biggest one, I think, would be the Woodlawn Hotel exhibit, because, excuse me, they were going to sell the building, and so they had an auction sale, and people bought things and then donated that, so that it's a replica of what their dining room used to be like. And we also have a mountain lion. I don't know if you noticed that. It was up on the wall. That was shot in Kidder County and stuffed, and that was a big part of the lobby in the Woodlawn. And
Oh, it was in
that's-
the lobby. Yeah, I took a picture of the menu because you could get a meal for $1.
Right.
And what year was the Woodlawn Hotel built?
It was built in sections. The first part, I think, was 1879 or something, a few years after the town was started. But then it was added on several times.
And it was operational until it burned down, right?
Right.
And it burned down, what was the year?
Can I
Oh,
look
I'm
at it?
sorry. I'm sorry. Wasn't it like 1990 or so?
1997.
1997. Okay.
It wasn't in operation as a hotel though.
Okay.
They had closed the hotel, and the AMVETs were going. The AMVETs were going to buy it, and they were in the process of tearing it down, and it caught fire.
But you can visit it at the Kidder County
Kidder
Museum.
County
You can see a
Museum.
little display.
We also
Table, restaurant
We also
set up.
have one, almost a complete replica of a church, a country church. That was at Persian Lake, southwest of Steele. And we've got the altar and the communion rail, and there's a pipe organ. I'm not sure if that's from the Persian Lake, but it's a old pipe organ.
And it's one separate room, right? So
Right.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's like a small little church from the old churches built in the 1800s.
Yes.
So yeah, very interesting piece of history. And you have a cream separator, right? A big machine.
Cream separator.
Did you ever use those in your own life?
Oh yes, many times. The milk cows.
And then what did you do?
Then you had to separate the milk and separate the cream from the milk and feed the pale calves or the pigs the separated milk, and the cream was sold.
And you didn't have refrigeration back then, right?
Oh,
Did you
no.
have an ice box?
No, we didn't have that either. No, we put it in the water tank. And when the water got warm, then you pumped some more cold water in there.
Oh, that is so interesting. I never heard that before. That's how you kept things cold.
In the South, they had ice, different places, but we didn't have ice. No.
Oh, interesting. So you'd have milk and cream year round, but you just kept it cold in different ways. In the wintertime, no problem, right?
No, no. North Dakota, and especially Kidder County, we were extremes. I think the coldest was 60 below in Parshall, which is north of here, not in Kidder County, and 120 was the hottest it was.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
So-
that's definitely hot.
Yeah.
So also in the museum, you have like a little kitchen set up and just a lot of artifacts from the way it used to be, probably when you were a girl, right?
Well, and older than me.
So what year were you born?
I was born 33.
1933.
88. Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of changes.
Oh, yes.
A lot of changes, but
Because I lived my whole life in Kidder County.
and why is that? Like you haven't wanted to leave. I know that you love it here.
Well, I was born in Tuttle, and then I got married to a Kidder County fellow, and so I stayed in Kidder County.
Have you ever wanted to move to a bigger city, or what do you like about such a small area?
I visited, but no, I like Kidder County and
Yeah,
Steele.
good community. What I love in researching it is how everybody knows each other, and everybody knows Betty Smoka.
Well, no, I hope not.
And now they know you all over the world now, Betty. You're TV
Yeah.
famous. So thank you so much for joining
There's
us.
one other thing.
Okay.
Oh, the museum is in the community building, which was built in 1939 under the WPA, and that's when it's not a historical society, on the historical register. But those rocks were all hand hewn outside of town, hauled in with horse-drawn machinery.
Wow.
And there was one fellow that did all of those. In fact, the post office, there's another building in Tuttle, one in Robinson, Tappan, I believe Dawson. They were all built under the WPA program.
With horses dragging things in. Wow. And it's still standing today. So right into the 2021.
Right?
It has survived.
You don't want to push anything down in Kidder County.
No. Well, thank you, Betty, for joining us today. And we'll be right
Pleasure.
back with more of My Hometown from Steele, Kidder County.
My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: Steele Vets Club, Kidder County Transit, Dakota Custom Services. My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: Beck Communications, Arena Welding and Manufacturing LLC, Shields,
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. And we are here from the Cobblestone Inn and Suites in beautiful Steele, Kidder County. And I'm joined by Kayla Leno, and she is originally from the area, right?
Yes, I am originally from Pettibone. I've lived there most of my life. I moved away for a few years to attend college at BSC to get my bachelor's degree in accounting through DSU. We lived there not even 2 years and decided to move back home. My husband and I just didn't feel at home there, so we put our house on the market and it sold within the 24 hours. And when we moved back to that small community, we didn't have a house to go to. So we ended up actually staying in a camper for about 6 months.
Oh my gosh, wow. Was it in the summer? I hope it wasn't in January.
It was in the summer and the fall.
Okay. You know what I love when I do these My Hometowns is I love finding somebody who left, did perfectly well, but really felt drawn back to their community for all the good things that it offered to them. So why do you think you came back?
Well, it seemed like when we were living there, we were driving back here every weekend anyway to do the things we love. And we didn't feel at home with the city lights and the noisy streets.
Now you have a very interesting life here. In addition to having triplets that are 9 years old right now, which makes family especially important. But you are a welder. Even though you graduated with a degree in accounting, you do welding now. How did that come about?
Yeah, so when we decided to move back to Pettibone, I had got my degree in accounting and realized that I wouldn't have a job unless I drove for, an hour to an hour and a half one way just for a job. So my husband had said, why don't you just learn how to weld? And then you can take care of the books too. And I said, well, I don't know if welding's going to be my thing. So he put me in front of the welder and I fell in love with it.
It is funny that you don't think of women welding, but I've heard that women who do weld are good at it because it takes precision work, and women tend to be good at the precision things. And your business is Arena Welding, right?
Yep, Arena Welding and Manufacturing.
All right. And so how long have you been welding?
I've been welding since, it's been like 12 years, maybe 14.
All right. So yeah, you've been at it for a while and you still love it?
Yes, absolutely.
And one of the things that I often come across in small towns are people doing a number of different jobs, and you're no exception to that. So what else do you do as a family business?
Yeah, so my husband and I run the Arena Welding, and when we're done with that, after 5 o'clock, we go work on our second family business, which is between me, my husband, my dad, and my brothers, and all their families. We raise butcher steers and chickens and pigs, and we put up our own hay for them and everything. So it takes quite an effort to do this all after 5 and on weekends. And
it has become T&L Meats, right?
Yes, that is called T&L Meats.
And that is, what does T&L stand for?
For Tripp and Leno.
Okay.
So, and we have a license through the Department of Health to retail our meat out of our garage in Pettibone. So you can actually just buy hamburger by the pound, or one steak, or one roast, or one chicken, whatever it is. You don't have to buy a whole beef or a quarter.
And you were able to do this, it began as a hobby though, right?
Yes, it became as a hobby, just with my family wanting our own meat. And some of our family members have tried it when we were just in this experimental stage of trying something new. And they said they absolutely loved it and that we should, pursue this. So we're still doing it after 6 years.
And so, so it's open to the public. If somebody was interested in T&L Meats, how would they find you?
They can find us on Facebook. We have a page under T&L Meats. And they could send us a message on there, or they could reach me on my cell phone.
Do you go through Pride of Dakota?
We are members of Pride of Dakota.
All right.
This year we are not going to go to the shows just because we have a limited inventory right now.
Okay. And so these are all like, what makes your meat special from any other meat out there?
Ours are grain fed, and we have our own ration. They are Holstein steers that we feed up. So they're very well marbled. It tends to give it very flavorful and juicy meat.
So yeah, real high quality meat, which people are looking for. Speaking of meat, do you like to hunt? No surprise, if somebody's going to weld, I think they should hunt too, right?
Right.
How did you get into hunting?
That was something that started as a kid. Like they talked in the previous interview about shooting clay pigeons. My uncle had us kids interested in that when we were young as well, and it just kind of grew from there to, go bird hunting with him, deer hunting, and it's just something that's always stuck with me and I enjoy.
I know you showed me a picture of you went goose hunting and you have all these Canadian geese. So what do you do with the meat when you're done?
We actually use all of it. Our freezers can get a little bit full before we can process it, but we make goose sausage, goose jerky. I pressure can some of the goose. So we use it all up.
All right. And yeah, I bet you have a lot of fresh meat at your house, and you probably have a lot of good recipes, right, for wild game?
Yes, yep.
Maybe that should be your next business, is a recipe book. You also sent me a picture. You said, this is our bread and butter, and it's this big claw. It's a grapple fork.
Yes.
And you said that why is it your bread and butter? What is it?
Well, they're forks that go on buckets to grab large hay bales. Most ranchers will have one of these on their farm of some sort. And Arena Welding was founded like 30 some years ago. This is what they came up with. And throughout the years and the transition of owners, my husband and I were the ones to take over it. And we just always kept the name Arena Welding because they were so well known for their grapple forks. And that's our main business, our main income from Arena Welding.
Is there a patent on this grapple fork?
No, there is
No, okay, so anybody can make them, but obviously not everybody does, because it's a
Right.
big piece of machinery.
Right, yep.
And so are you known in the area then? A lot of farmers come
Yes,
to you for the
actually.
grapple fork?
Yeah, we do a lot of business here in North Dakota, Montana, and South Dakota.
All right, with the grapple fork.
Yep.
Yeah, how do you advertise something like that?
Well, we do a lot of local papers in North Dakota,
Okay,
and a lot of the out-of-state ones are just from word of mouth.
all right, yeah, I guess if people are happy with the product,
Yeah.
they know where to get their grapple forks from.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for joining us, Kayla. I really appreciate it. And that'll close out our last segment here of My Hometown, coming to you from Steele and Kidder. And stay tuned again tomorrow for Ladies of Another View on Back.
My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: Steele Ozone, H&R Block, Pfeiffer's Auction and Realty. My Hometown in Steele is brought to you by the following: First Community Credit Union of Steele, Cobblestone Inn and Suites, Beck Communications,